So, Michelle.
So, David.
I want to play you a piece of music. Are you ready for this?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, hold your breath. It's brilliant.
Can't wait.
Can you feel that?
I'm feeling something.
That
I don't know if
stirring sort of patriotic verve that this song gives you. Mm-hmm. This is a very, 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 very important piece of music.
Why?
Well, it comes from an extremely popular film made in 1955. It is the story of a great military action taken by the British RAF, the Royal Air Force. They went out there and using Barnes Wallis bouncing bombs, they blew up 2 dams in the Ruhr Valley and flooded the German industrial capacity in 1943. And it's a very stirring and fabulous film. And it's regarded as one of the great military moments in World War II, in military history. Some say it shortened the war, some say it didn't. That doesn't really matter. The whole thing it was regarded as this miraculous and incredible thing, right? Well, we had something happen recently, and it ain't regarded as heroic, miraculous, or anything. It's actually regarded now as a war crime.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
The destruction of the Nova Kharkovka Dam on the Dnipro River in Ukraine.
Okay.
We're going back to Europe, baby.
Yay. You're listening to I Spied, the broken dam of Australian intelligence.
What ho before, Georgie? We're now going to make our attack run. Oh crap, there's a lot of people living under this thing. I just released the bomb. Oh, we're screwed.
Hello and welcome to I Spy. My name is Michelle Stevenson. I'm here with David Cullen. And look, to be honest, I had no idea what we're talking about until at least half an hour before we got in. So this should be a good one.
Well, look, I mean, the thing is, when it happened, it's been like, just to fill everyone in, essentially on Tuesday last week, a dam on the Dnipro River the Dnipro River, I keep calling it Dnipro because it's got a D in the front of it, the Dnipro River, which is the dividing line between the Russian occupation and the Ukrainian forces, right?
Yes. So it's held by Russia.
Well, one side's held by Russia and probably a little bit of the other side's held by Russia because you never let's leave that side of the river completely undefended, right? So basically the Russians were holding this dam.
Yep.
Right? They took it during the invasion that occurred last year, as we've all been told.
But it's not called an invasion.
Sorry, special military operation.
Yeah.
Right. So
also known as setting them free.
Setting them free, freeing the people that...
We're freeing the people that no longer exist because we killed them all.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So what happened was there was a dam there. Now, this dam is part of the Kharkova, what's called, some of the locals call it the Kharkova Sea because it is so wide in points that you can't see the other side of it. But it held a reservoir, and this reservoir is the last dam in what's called the Dnipro Cascade, a series of 6 dams up the Dnipro River that are used to generate hydroelectric power.
Yes, and it's important to add that this dam is also a road.
It is a road and a railway line. And in fact, it's one of the only places other than Kherson where you can cross the Dnipro in that area. So basically, somebody blew it up?
Well, the jury's still out on whether it's been blown up.
That's the very interesting point.
Because it happened when I looked at the satellite imagery.
Oh, you've done that? Oh, I'm so glad.
Yeah. I also have access to Reddit, you freak.
Taught you.
When you look at the satellite imagery, it kind of disintegrated over a period of time. So they were
over a couple of days.
Yeah, so they were able to get, thousands of villagers who live in these low-lying areas on the water out.
Right. Now, that's the important thing because, as you said, the satellite imagery, it shows the dam and then literally a day later, half the road on the dam is missing.
Yes.
And then a day later, there's this massive hole with a lot of water pouring through.
Right. And so no one really has ascertained whether it was blown up.
No one knows what's happened. All right. Now, there's accusations of flying, but let's go through a few statistics so we know what we're dealing with.
Oh, my God,
here.
statistics, love them.
Stats, I know you do.
This is the period of the podcast where my eyes start to glaze.
This is where you put the seatbelt on so you don't slump forward into your microphone.
I am strapping myself in for something really interesting.
Okay, so the Warragamba Dam here in Sydney, right? It holds around about just above 2,000 gigalitres of water, which is a substantial body of water. The reservoir behind the Nova Kharkovka Dam holds approximately 18,000 gigalitres of water.
Okay.
So it is freaking massive.
It's big.
Now, the other thing it does is it has a canal that runs from it. It's called the North Crimean Canal.
Yep.
Now, the North Crimean Canal runs down, obviously, down through the north of Crimea, across, not to Sevastopol, not to Mariupol, I can't remember. It goes to somewhere, actually Kerch, I think, near the Kerch Bridge, where there is a water treatment plant so you can drink it. Now, the other thing it does is it basically looks after all the irrigation for northern Crimea.
Yep.
Now, the Ukrainians, when Russia annexed Crimea, turned the water off. They went, oh, really? You want water?
Just like they'd like to do with the gas.
They did. They switched it off, which they did to Europe as well, funnily enough. That's all come out. So they switched it off, right? And then, of course, when Russia took the area, they switched it back on, so there's more water running to Crimea. Now what they've done is they've literally ripped a hole. Someone has ripped a hole.
Allegedly.
Well, allegedly. Either that or it's just an indication of how crappy Soviet building was.
Yes, because let's be clear, they did build it initially.
Yeah, back in the 50s.
Yes.
Right. So the whole thing is this thing is now flooded pretty much the low-lying area right through to Kherson, which is pretty much on the coast.
Yeah, taking out villages.
Taking out villages. I don't know if you've seen the footage of the guys in, it looks like Lismore. These two blokes in a boat rowing along, calling out, and this guy's calling out in Russian, people, he's trying to get people out of their houses. And you see this bloke rowing the boat with him, and the next thing you just hear and an artillery shell goes off nearby. And this bloke is sitting in a boat, and he's just looks at the guy with the camera and says, I don't think I'm ready to do this.
Yeah.
And the guy says, think of the people, keep going. All right, we've got to do this. We've got to rescue people. So imagine Lismore, but you're under fire. Because
I mean, if you've been to Lismore, it's like you're under fire.
and for all of our Lismore listeners, shame on you, Michelle. Shame on you.
Have you been to Lismore?
I have been to Lismore once.
Yeah.
Drove through, nice place.
Yeah.
On my way to, I think I was on my way to Nimbin. Anyway.
Of course, to get the pot cookies.
Oh, no, really? I was going there to look at the Cannabis Museum, if you don't mind.
That Cannabis Museum is a crock of shit.
It's so
it's so bad. But there's always a local sitting in the corner going, do you want something?
You want to buy some skunk?
Yeah.
I remember I had a carload of backpackers from Byron with me. And,
that is literally the only time I've been is when I've been backpacking in Byron and you go on the Nimbin bus and you just to get the weed.
Well, I remember actually pulling up. I was driving a yellow VW at the time, a little yellow VW Beetle. It's didn't that guy scream, I want dope? And the interesting thing is most of the people on the street selling dope were kids.
Yeah.
Right. And the thing is I pull up in this yellow VW and I watched every kid just go, not you.
Oh, really?
No way are we. Every time I go
is
to
that because
Byron,
they've been taught to stay away from men in vans?
No, it wasn't a van. It wasn't a combi. It was a little yellow VW Beetle. But basically, I remember I was in a pub in Byron and, I wanted to smoke and I didn't have anything to smoke. And I was playing pool with these surfers and I sort of went to the bathroom. And
I mean, surfers know where it's at.
Yeah, and this guy sort of said, how's your holiday in Byron, mate? And I went, it'd be great if I could get my hands on,
Some weed.
And literally this guy just stopped, zipped up and just went, look, we're all really Christian. And then ran out of the toilet. When I went back to the pool table, everyone was gone. And it's
because you came across I
look like a
cop. Yeah.
There's nothing I can do that doesn't make me look like a cop. I mean, I could shave my head and tattoo it with a spider web and everyone would go, cop.
Nowadays, if you ask for weed, it's quite kosher. Whereas back then, it's that's an offence that you would get arrested.
Exactly.
For.
But also the other thing with Nimbin is most of the people up there are selling speed now. They're selling meth.
Oh yeah, I know.
It's
heroin.
really awful. Anyway, we've digressed slightly from the Ukraine to
we've gone from the Ukraine to where to get your supply when you're in Australia.
By the way, we in no way condone the use of drugs at all, unless you give them to me.
I feel like you're high right now. Anyway.
I wish I was.
You're hungry.
Yeah. Now, so getting back to the Ukraine.
Yes.
Right. Getting back to Ukraine and what's going on with the Nova Kharkovka.
Yep.
Right. So it's not only has it released all this water, which I think the Ukrainian agriculture minister said it has the chance of turning all of this fertile land into a desert.
Yeah.
The only way I can think that could happen is it's washed all the topsoil away. But I would imagine that there would be silt that comes down through that reservoir, though reservoir silt generally sits at the bottom. So who knows? Also, it released 150 tons of oil.
Yep.
Right. A lubricating oil, not a petroleum oil. Well, who knows what it is. And there's the chance that another 300 tons can be released.
Where's the oil coming from?
Oh, well, there's also there was a hydro electrical plant
Yep.
in the dam.
Yep.
So that broke. Its oil tanks have been ruptured.
So does that mean the power has gone out as well?
Yeah.
Yep.
I hope everyone charged their phone over there because there's not a lot you can do about it. There's obviously other avenues of powering Kherson and the environment, but that was one of the main parts. The other thing is just upriver from it on the reservoir is the, let me find it here, the Zaporizhia nuclear reactor. Right. It's 6 reactors in a line.
Are they really taking out anything to do with nuclear?
They're taking, well, this is the interesting thing. The Russians have had a campaign of knocking out electrical assets, locking out utilities.
They know that if they take out utilities that, the people are really going to not be happy about it.
Well, they're not going to be happy, but here's the thing. And it was a really interesting point that one person, one of the journalists in the Washington Post made, and I thought that's a really smart move. And he was also referring to the video of the guys in the boat trying to rescue people a la Lismo. Right? Their big thing was if anything is going to galvanize the Ukrainians against the Russians, it is this kind of behaviour. It's we understand you want this territory. We understand you're willing to fight for it. But the fact that you're willing to destroy it to inconvenience what is the counter-offensive, the Ukraine's, maybe, we're not quite sure if they've launched it yet. We'll get into that. So the whole thing is not only that, it's severed the river crossing and it's also halted the advances that the Ukrainians are making around Kherson.
Well, yeah, it's
because they've turned it into a swamp.
Yeah, and it's stopped, people using that bridge as an access point.
Yeah, so it's really ground that counter-offensive that seemed to be getting traction down there. Now, of course, the Russians are blaming the Ukrainians. They've turned around and
that's all they do. It's like whenever there was a drone that hit one building, it looks like it must be the Ukrainians.
Well, literally, it just feels like Vladimir Putin is sitting there with his hand in the cookie jar going, he did it, right? And crumbs all over him.
But he has form here, right? Because we know years ago he allegedly blew up a building in Russia with all these people died and you found out that it was him, and he did it because he wanted to kind of force the hand of people to do what he wanted.
Now, the way the Russians have framed it is they've said it's a distraction for the failing counteroffensive the Ukrainians have launched. According to most intel coming out of the area, it's not failing.
Yeah.
Right. The other thing is they did it specifically to cut off the water supply to Crimea. That's dubious as well.
Yep.
And the other one is they supposedly, and they said this in the UN Security Council has been working on this one and they basically condemned it. And Russia turned around and said, well, don't look at us because we intercepted communications from a Ukrainian officer who was sandboxing the idea of firing artillery at that dam. Now, the whole thing is
But there's no vision of that.
There's no vision of anything being fired.
No.
That's a very good point. But the other thing is, sure, they're going to sandbox that because that's an area that they've got to attack to get across. So if they've got to attack it, they're going to have to work out how they can support their troops with artillery. And I think it wouldn't be, hey, how can we shoot our artillery at this dam to blow it up? It would be more along the lines of, how do we shoot artillery at that dam and not blow it up? We don't want it, because it doesn't help the Ukrainians to destroy it. Now, Ukrainians are blaming the Russians, of course, because one, it interrupts their counteroffensive. Two, it's a very big distraction from the Russian problems, which we will talk about. And also they regard it as a slash and burn tactic. They're essentially going, all right, we're going to lose this territory, so let's make sure it's of no value to the Ukrainians as well. Right, so there is that, people, they said slash and burn, but people are now calling it blow and drown. So they've blown up
they're not really slashing and burning.
They're not slashing and burning, they're drowning it. Now, they want to inflict maximum damage to the area, so when the Ukrainians get it back, it's worthless.
Yeah,
again,
which is such a Russian perspective.
Yeah, well, they have form in this kind of tactic. Now, the problems the Russians have at the moment are huge, right? The Wagner group have basically gone, fuck you, we're out.
Yeah, they're just they're like their own little army doing whatever they want.
Well, there was that video footage about a month ago of them holding up the Russian flag in the centre of Bakhmut saying, we've taken Bakhmut. Now they basically turn around to Russia going, you know what, we're not going to hold it. Screw you, you do it. We're sick of doing your dirty work for you. And Prigozhin, the head of Wagner, spends most of his time on Reddit and Twitter and Telegram basically dissing the Kremlin. He's talking about how they're weak, how they're ineffective, how they're stupid, how Putin's a fool. And it's like, dude, are you jonesing for that job or what?
Yeah.
Now, the other problem they've got is their material and their supply chain and their supply lines are incredibly fucked, is the only way to put it. Right? Here's the thing. They've got these really good landmines for anti-tank mines, and they fire them out of a cannon. They shoot them, and they spread out over a road. They don't have to run out and put them down. The thing is, as they're fired, they arm. Right? Once they land, they arm. Now, to arm them, you need a battery.
Okay.
That little battery will cost you, it's something like, and here's another indication of what's going on in Russia, the battery will cost you something between 15 to 30,000 rubles.
Which is?
$6.50.
And they can't afford it?
They can't find them. They don't have any.
Oh, because they've run out of batteries.
Well, they've run out of batteries for these landmines, and they can't look through. They're going into all the shops going, excuse me, do you have any landmine batteries? It's not a common battery, but it's not it's not a device specific.
And I would imagine no one's selling them those batteries.
Well, that would be the point. I mean, China might be going, you need some batteries, here you go. But even China at the moment, interesting.
China's like that Homer Simpson meme where they're backing away into the hedge. Yeah.
Oh, totally. That's the thing at the moment. Everyone is expecting China to step up at some point and be the sheriff, essentially. USA aren't doing it because USA have welded themselves quite solidly.
Well, to be honest,
Ukraine.
though, they've got to worry about their own little debt ceiling and like the trillions and all of the stuff that they're trying to worry about.
Meanwhile, let's just keep shoveling out material to the Ukraine military. Now, China have actually sort of like stepped back. They've had their meeting with Russia. They've had their meeting with Ukraine. They're avoiding the meeting with the USA. And essentially, they're just sitting back going, let's just watch and see where the pieces fall, right? Which is very important for them, right? Now, the other thing that's come up, and I don't know if you've seen it, it's called Plans Like Silence. Have you seen the video?
Mate, I don't watch the stuff you watch. What are you talking about?
This is huge. Basically, the Ukrainian government.
It's huge for people who sit in a little blanket fort and go deep on Reddit.
I'm just going to sit here and take this abuse because that's what I volunteered for. No, right. So this is a video that's been released by the Ukrainian government basically saying, shut the fuck up about the counteroffensive.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, it's a really beautifully produced video and it sort of cuts to a shot and you see this soldier turn around and just press his finger to his lips and go, shh, right?
Okay.
And it just says, plans like silence. Loose lips sink ships. It's their version. But my son was the one, have you seen this, Dad? Because he also lives in a little blanket fort of his own. Yeah. This is more of a pillow fort. Anyway,
You mean his bed? He just lives in his bed. He's a teenager.
But he basically walked out and said, have you seen this video? And I said, yeah. He went, no, have you looked at it seriously? And he basically went through, he's currently trying to get his armourer's license for film sets. So he's right into this sort of stuff. And he went, that's a 50 cal Barrett and that's a this and that. And he knows all of it. And I suddenly went, hang on, that's like top end military tech, right? That's the top end of stuff. And he went, oh yeah, Russia is screwed because basically the West have gone, yeah, this is great. Try this, use this. Here's a HIMARS, use that. Here are our Bradleys. Australia, throw some more Bushmasters at them. You need some Abrahams. Who's got Abrahams? Oh, Poland, great.
Well, interestingly though, like the opposition is having a crack at our government about not supporting Ukraine enough.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, I mean, I find one of the things that they've said is, we're saving up the announcement from when we're at the NATO, when Albo's at the NATO meeting.
Yeah, Albo loves a stage.
Which, that seems to be the leitmotif of every Prime Minister we have because remember how...
they all love a stage.
Yeah, getting back to Lismore, Morrison didn't bother to talk about the relief he could give to Lismore for a week because he was locked away in COVID.
Oh, no, he was waiting till he could show up with a shovel.
Be there with a mop to mop a gym in southern Queensland. Whatever, anyway.
That's because he got accused of not holding a hose when there were fires. So
he held a broom
he wants to hold something.
Right. Maybe stop holding that one thing that you keep holding.
Yeah.
Anyway, the thing is, right, and in a way they're right, but in a way, like the opposition are right, but in a way they're wrong. And we should be bipartisan with this sort of stuff. We shouldn't actually be arguing about it. And also, what are we going to give them? We barely have any stuff of our own at the moment, right? We are currently going through a material review and we're changing the way we're doing our defence. So, it may be that we wind up with 50 what should be obsolete M1A1 Abrams tanks that we can give them, but we can't give them to them right now. And at the moment, plenty of people are giving them kit. I mean,
Yeah.
the Americans are about to give them F-16s, and if they get the F-16s, oh crap, it is on. I mean,
Yeah.
the Russians have now accused the Americans of giving them planes that are capable of carrying nuclear warheads, to which the Americans went, yes, the F-16s can do that. Do you think we're going to give them to the Ukrainians? No. And also, the Ukrainians have no nukes to put on them.
No, and that's the whole point.
And the Americans could not give them nukes. That would be an absolutely flagrant breach
well, no one's giving anyone nukes.
of the rules of war. No one's giving anyone nukes. Now, we get to the rules of war. Let's get back to the dam.
Oh my God, I'm so excited, Go.
I know. I can
Yeah.
feel it. I can feel the enthusiasm
It's
washing over me.
radiating out.
Right. So we go back to dam busters.
Yep.
And the destruction of the dams in the Ruhr Valley, which
Did they send a little whale down to blow it up?
send a whale down.
A little beluga.
A little dolphin just raped
Yeah.
that dam. Man, and by the way, everyone on Twitter, thank you so much for embracing the joy of whales.
Oh,
last
did they?
week. Oh, they did. They
Great.
totally got into it. Now, the thing is, Operation Chastise, as it was called. Operation Chastise, gentlemen. This evening's mission, the Ruhr Valley, right? The big thing was the British worked very hard on this because
Yeah.
they realised the best way to knock out all of this industrial base, mines, factories, the whole ball of wax, was to blow up the dams and just flood the region. Here's the thing. What people don't talk about is, 53 people died on that mission. Well, 50 people died and 3 people were captured. 8 planes were lost. 1,600 people, civilians, were killed.
Okay.
600 Germans and 1,000 enslaved workers. Most people think, funnily enough, they were Russians.
Yep.
Right, Russian captives. So here's the thing about that was everyone went, oh, that was a brilliant move and really well done and fantastic. And then someone sort of went, guys, it's really not cool to kill civilians, right? Yes, we bomb cities, and the Germans did. They bomb cities. We do that all the time. But, and here's the thing. In 1977, this is how long the wheels took. It took from the 50s right through to the 70s to have the thing. Article 56 of Protocol 1 of the Geneva Convention.
Of course you know this.
It was amended to outlaw attacks on dams.
Yep.
If such an attack may cause the release of dangerous forces and consequent severe losses among civilian populations.
So is this now a war crime potentially?
It is a war crime
Yep.
unless it is used, that infrastructure, that dam
Yeah.
is used in regular, significant and direct support of military operations, and if such an attack is the only feasible way to terminate such support. Now, there is no real evidence that that dam was being used in a military operation.
So to be honest, it's all kind of murky.
Like the waters
Yes.
that have flown through the dam.
Yeah. It's all a
It
bit
is as
murky.
murky as shit.
Yep.
It looks like the water that those
Yeah.
poor buggers were paddling through to try and find people to rescue them. I did like there was one photo of these guys rescuing this girl, right? And all the guys are sort of like walking like sort of thigh deep in this horrible murky water, pulling along this boat, and in it stood this typical Ukrainian gorgeous girl wearing a very tight t-shirt and booty shorts, like cutaway denim shorts, on a phone, like
Being pulled along.
selfieing herself in a war. It's just like,
I mean, she's probably an influencer.
probably, yeah, she's influencing the war by going, come, I'm looking for a husband.
Yes. Save me.
So the whole thing is there's not only this problem we've got here going on down here in the Kherson region. We have Wagner have abandoned the Russians. And also, have you heard of the Volgorod insurgency?
No.
Volgorod's about 10 kilometers, I think it is, or 20 kilometers from the original Russian-Ukrainian
Yeah.
border. Well, it's being hit with shell strikes. And also there is the Russian, I think they're called the Russian Freedom Legion, which is a group of Russian insurgents that have gone, we don't believe in the Kremlin anymore, we're going to fight you. So there's now combat inside Russia. Now Russia, of course, saying, it's the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians are going, wow, don't look at us. They've got their hand in the cookie jar as well. There is no doubt that the Ukrainians would be supporting this insurgency. It's just another thorn in the Kremlin's side. And the other thing is the drone strikes hitting Moscow.
Yeah, which, I mean, I can't imagine that would be something that the Ukrainians would be investing their time in.
Well, why not?
Because it doesn't really do anything.
Well, interestingly enough, the last round of drone strikes were all targeted at intelligence residences. So it was a building that's everyone realised is owned by, or at least it's a part of the FSB assets, and it's where a lot of their intelligence officers live. Now, there's been no word of any casualties.
No.
Right? Now, but
nor has there been a lot of damage.
But there is a great video, and when you watch it, the first time I watched it, I went, holy shit. It's like literally it is a like battleship just smashing into the middle of Red Square and taking out St. Basil's Cathedral and the Kremlin. You watch it and you realise, oh, come on, that's a fake. But it's a really, really good fake.
Yeah.
But essentially the whole idea is that people are literally throwing whatever they can at Moscow. Now, would it be a Ukrainian operation? Could be an intelligence operation. It could be a special forces group that have gotten in there. And look, the border for Russia must be so porous at the moment. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Once you get behind the lines, mate, it's free for all. And who's Russian, who's Ukrainian, who's on your side?
I was going to say,
not.
how can you really tell whose side anyone is on?
Well, it'd be
messy.
It was the interesting thing about Afghanistan is, one, in Afghanistan they have a fighting season, right? So there's a period of time in the year where they do all their fighting.
I love that.
And the other thing is, if you change hats, you've changed sides. That's all you have to do to change sides.
Oh.
You just take one hat off, put another hat on.
But what if you just walk through and you like change hats and then you get to the other side and you put the other hat on? It's just,
Yeah.
It's like when Canadians would go backpacking and they would always make sure they put a Canadian flag on their backpack. And sometimes Americans would put Canadian flags on their backpack because they didn't want to be accused of being American.
Right? That's exactly the thing that's going on, is that once you get, again, it comes down to what Robert McNamara called the fog of war. And we're getting a lot of that. I mean, the Ben Robert Smith case that blew up last week when the judge's decision came
Terrible
through.
Case.
A lot of his supporters are saying, well, come on, fog of war, it's a war, what do you expect? You can't send people out there to kill people and then tell them not to murder them. It's like, well, you can.
Well, there's
it's
a difference.
Called rules.
There's a difference between rules of engagement and murdering someone and who's a civilian in front of their family and then drinking a shoey out of their prosthetic leg.
Yeah, and kicking a man off a cliff and also turning around to one of your soldiers and saying, no, you will kill him. It's your job because you need to be blooded. It's like the guy's done nothing. Just shoot him.
Look, I do think, I mean, we're getting off topic here, but I do think when it comes to Ben Robert Smith, these are all still alleged war crimes because this was a civil.
It's all alleged.
This was a civil case. But I do think there is something to be said about the rules of engagement, and when you're deep into working in those environments, you think a little differently and you're trained a little differently.
You're not trained a little differently. You're trained a lot differently than a regular soldier. And that is actually an episode within itself as what's gone on in the Special Forces in Australia that has created this problem. I
do think, again, allegedly, Ben Robert Smith, there are some things that he did back on home soil which don't look good for him and don't bode well for him. But there is something to be said about how do we support our army and our armed forces when they're over there? What kind of support are they getting? And clearly they weren't being watched closely enough if this stuff is happening.
Exactly.
So I think this is a bigger conversation. I don't think we can just highlight one person. I think there is bigger conversations within our Defence Force that need to happen.
I think what's going to happen with that as well. And look, I totally agree with that simply because, one, all the information hasn't been revealed. The Brereton report's there, but it's a classified report. So we've got the unclassified and the classified versions. There is stuff that's been going on in Defence that is a bit hinky. A lot of people are going to have to face the music on this one, and it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be very, very ugly from the minister down.
But what I do like is that we live in a country where these things are prosecuted and these things are looked at and are talked about. There's a lot of countries, particularly Russia, Ukraine, there are a lot of countries where this bad stuff happens and it's almost like a badge of honor. Rape how many people you want to rape, kill how many people you want to kill. It doesn't matter if they're civilians. So at least we do hold ourselves to a higher standard, and that is something that we need to be proud of. The fact that we have this process within the Defence Force is something we need to be proud of, even if we don't always like the outcomes.
Exactly. And that is the thing. And it goes back to what we were talking about last week, that idea of we have our opinions, but we need to maintain our neutrality if we're going to analyse something.
Yep.
This is really important. I mean, this is one of the things that's important with this dam issue.
Yep.
It's a very, very, really, when you think about it in the greater picture of what's going on in the Ukraine, it's just another incident.
Yep.
But it's an incredibly damaging one for the they're calling it ecocide at the moment.
Yeah.
Some people have called it ecocide. The thing is, right, this is something
it's like when you're a toddler and you're like, well, if I can't have it, you can't have it either.
I'm going to make a confession
Yeah.
here. It's a really important...
You're a toddler? Yes.
Funnily enough, when I was working for ASIO, I used to spend Sunday nights with a couple of ASIO guys that I work with and a couple of mates from one of my theatre mates. He was the game master. We played a role-playing game like Dungeons and Dragons.
Right. Of
Only
course you
set
did
in the future.
You're a geek.
Because I'm a geek. Yeah,
You weren't dating women. You were playing Dungeons and Dragons.
I was
with your
dating
geeky
women. I was dating strange girls with glasses that like playing paladins.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Like I learned so much about you. Like so much.
And I know nothing about you. And you know what?
And that's the way we like
And
it.
that's the way we all like it.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, with this game, we were, a bunch of outlaws, rebelling against the fascist dictatorship that was running the United States out of Chicago and whatever, blah, 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 blah. But we decided we wanted to get up their nose. The whole aim of our characters in the game was to get the biggest bounty on their head.
Yeah.
So let's get some bounty. Let's do something really radical and blow something up. So we blew up a dam. And we had this great operation where we blew up the dam. We blew it up and it really annoyed them. But the game master, classic thing, just rolls a dice after you. Yep, you've successfully destroyed the dam. The reservoir is now currently rushing down the valley. Well done. Rolls a dice and he goes, and you killed 30,000 people in the town 2 miles below. And we all just went,
Okay.
oh shit, we didn't think about that. And we think it was all fantasy, but we all went, oh Jesus, that's really bad. And this is one of the things about this dam. Did anyone think about what was going to happen?
What? Of course.
But somebody might say, we could take this road out and then they can't get across. Without going, guys, if you take the road out, you take out everything underneath.
Yeah, but I mean, people understand that a dam holds things back, like water.
I do.
Large
totally.
volumes of water.
Yes, but again, going back to the Ruhr Valley, no one thought, what are the consequences for the civilian population when we do this? This is an act of war. We will destroy this dam. Damn the consequences. For want of a better word, damn the consequences.
But I do also think that Russia doesn't really think big picture sometimes. Or if they do, they don't care.
They don't care.
No.
Right? And that, I think, is
ruthless.
the real takeaway from this is
Yes.
whoever was the culprit. Now, the other thing that people are saying that Ukraine did it because look what they did to the gas pipeline going through the Baltic.
It's like 9/11 was an
Nord
inside
Stream.
job.
Yeah, 9/11 is but there is evidence that it was probably the Ukrainians that did it. They were the ones that took out the Nord Stream pipelines, Nord Stream and Nord Stream 2. There's mounting evidence to support that. But also, it inconveniences Europe, but it doesn't destroy Europe.
No.
It raises gas prices, which inconveniences the frickin' planet, but it doesn't destroy the planet.
Yeah.
It releases a lot of gas into the Baltic Sea. That could be bad. No wonder that whale went, God damn it, I don't want to live here. I'm going to go to Sweden.
You know what, this war, like when we started talking about this, we were like, it's not going to last that long. No one thought it was going to last that long.
We'll all be home by Easter. Literally. I remember we were both saying that. This won't last long. Russia will crush this and move it.
And the fact that it's still going, I mean, like I've even stopped talking about it in news. I'm quite exhausted by it.
That was the interesting thing, was literally no one was talking about this counter-strike.
No. And like even the dam stuff, I wasn't even talking about it.
Yeah. Now, finding information on it, there is a lot of information if you dig, and you don't have to dig very deep.
No, you don't.
Because
you just have to type it into Google.
There are geeks. There are geeks like me that go, ooh, I want to know more about this.
Yeah.
What is very interesting about this, though, is how we're becoming more and more inured to what's going on in the Ukraine.
Yeah, we are.
It's like, sorry, what's going on in Ukraine?
I know you always put a "the" in front of it
because that's how we described it when we were.
I know, but like it's like saying HMAS. No, what's the?
Well, my favourite is when people describe ASIO as the ASIO.
The ASIO.
There was a book once a guy wrote an American wrote, and it was always about, the ASIO came out in their speedboat armed with machine guns. It's like, shut up, right? It's not the ASIO, it's just ASIO, even though if you look at it, it is regarded as the Australian Security Intelligence Organisation, but its acronym is ASIO, not the ASIO.
It's like when I stopped at this little place in Port Macquarie and it was called the Coffee Cafe.
As opposed to a coffee cafe.
No, but like cafe is coffee.
The coffee. Oh, good point. I like it. Yeah, I get it. Okay.
Or if you go to, is it like Italy and you ask for a latte and they just give you a cup of milk? Yeah. Because it's like, you need to add the coffee part to it.
Yeah. Cafe latte.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So look, bottom line is we are and another thing is, going back to your thing about the opposition saying that we're not doing enough. Another reason why we're probably not doing enough is everyone's going, no one's talking about this. We can literally back away from this.
Yeah, you can back away from it because although, right now, if I was Albo, a good strategy would be to talk about Ukraine because no one wants to talk about inflation anymore.
No one wants to talk about
including me.
inflation, interest rates, money, forget it.
Yeah, recession. What recession?
Economics, no, I don't want to know. Right.
No. I can't hear you because I'm looking at Ukraine.
PwC, la, 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 la,
Yeah.
Right, yeah. So, the bottom line is at the moment,
Give us the bottom line.
the bottom line is quite simply the Ukrainian offensive is, well, the counter-offensive.
Is the offensive?
We're not exactly sure if it's really
No.
started. And the whole thing is, one of the things Ukraine has done through this war is they made lots of different feints. Now, what happened with the dam was Russia going, let's just shut this down right now. And it frees up a lot of their military
This is
assets.
all alleged as well.
Alleged,
We
yeah.
don't know what happened with the dam quite
Exactly,
yet.
right. But the whole thing is, if that is the case, it allows them to free up military assets in
Yes.
Crimea to move it north, which could be the plan. The other thing is there are 9 brigades of Western-trained troops, right, Ukrainian troops.
Yeah.
No one knows where they are. No one knows what they do, and they got all the latest gear that the West have given them. So at the moment,
All gear, no idea?
all gear. Well, if the West,
Or
if they've
all
been-
gear, some idea?
all gear, big idea.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's the really important thing at the moment is this counter-offensive, and the Ukrainians are being very, very coy about it. They've even got the shh campaign. They are being exceptionally coy. The counter-offensive, I would say, has started, but it hasn't gotten into full gear yet.
Okay, let's keep an eye on it.
And you know what? No fishing in the reservoir, kids.
Yeah, no one wants to eat that.
No.